10 series show, and the first 2 episodes were shown there on ESPN. And this Last Dance, this show, it's all about Michael Jordan's last championship season with the Bulls. Now, people are talking about Jordan in the aftermath, but really more than Jordan, they're talking about his teammate Scottie Pippen and what he went through and how underpaid he was, and was he right or wrong to schedule the surgery when he did. But more than that, they're talking about the general manager of the Chicago Bulls, at the time at least, whose name was Jerry Krause. And basically, the folks that were talking about him would say, hey, Jerry's in some ways is a good guy, but he's his own worst enemy. I mean, he messes up his own success. Now, I'm not here to judge Jerry Krause. He's not even alive to defend himself from all these people who are saying stuff. But I am saying that we can learn from his example, learn from what we've been told about his life. And so today, just for a minute, I wanted to talk to you about how we can avoid sabotaging our own success and really use Jerry Krause's life, or what we've heard of it, the other side from the other folks, use that story as an example. First of all, we need to all learn to enjoy the moment. One of Jerry Krause's problems was he was always looking to the next big thing. It wasn't enough that he had this amazing coach, Phil Jackson. He was always scouting somebody else. He was telling at least one other person we know, and maybe multiple, hey, you're my next coach when I need one. And he was looking for the next player and the next this and the next that. Now, I understand in a business world, especially in that business, you've got to be forward thinking, okay? And it's great to look to the future. It's great to learn from the past. But we have to really learn to live in the moment if we're going to enjoy life and if we're going to keep from sabotaging our own success. See, here's the deal. For those who are always looking and obsessing over that next big thing, they don't really enjoy fully or appreciate fully what they already have right now. I'm not going to name names, but hey, there's a lot of folks out there that they're not enjoying a relationship. You know why? Because they've already got their next thing picked out. They've already got a, quote, fallback plan. They already know, hey, this may not work out, so here's what I'm going to do next. Yeah, well, if you're focusing on that fallback plan, you're not really giving your best to that significant other in your life. Also with careers and jobs, they're constantly looking for the next big deal or the next career opportunity, and you kind of wonder, well, when have you actually been doing your own job? Kind of hard to see you being passionate about it when you're constantly looking for something else. And it seems like Jerry Krause, instead of enjoying, man, we've got this amazing coach, Phil Jackson, we've got Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen, all these other great players. It seems like he couldn't really enjoy what he already had because he was always looking for something else. So I want to just challenge you, enjoy the moment, enjoy what you have, don't take it for granted. I think this whole coronavirus thing we're going through has already kind of helped some of us get on the right mind frame. But I hope that we can continue that. Secondly, let others build you up. Let others build you up. The interesting thing about Jerry is that he just couldn't help but trying to brag on himself and give himself credit. And look, no doubt, as the GM, he put the right pieces in place. He was a vital part of those championship teams. But the thing is he always kind of wanted a little bit more credit than he was due. It was almost like he had this syndrome, and I don't know if he grew up, because like the video said, he had small man syndrome, if he was kind of a short, stubby, chubby guy, and who knows, maybe he didn't get enough attention or affirmation at home, but he was one of those folks that always seemed to have to compliment themselves constantly. And you know, when we come across those folks, at first we just pity them because we think, wow, they must have really had a lack of something in their life. But after a while, it gets really annoying. And you know what human nature is, that the more someone brags on themselves, the less likely we are to compliment them, right? And Jerry Krause never got this. He never realized that, hey, let me do what I do, let me give it my all, and then I'll enjoy the accolades as they come. He felt like he had to give his own accolades. And so he made a statement which has stuck ever since. You know, he made a statement, players, and I mean, I'll be quoting exactly, but he says something to the effect of, players don't win championships, organizations win championships. In other words, he couldn't just enjoy the success and accolades that he already had. He had to kind of try to add some, and in the process take the players down a notch. And that didn't sit well with folks because, you know, yes, he was a good GM putting those pieces together, but most folks thought, yeah, Jerry, if we had Michael Jordan, we could probably put together some championships too. So Proverbs 27:2 really gives us an insight here. It says, let your praise come from another person's lips. Let a stranger be the one to give you those accolades. We all want those kind of things, but hey, it's not our job to go around self-promoting, right? So enjoy the moment. Like Paul said, I've learned to be content in whatever situation that I'm in. I can do all things through Christ. And that's the real context there. It's not like some people say, oh, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. So, you know what? I'm going to be a star athlete. I'm 4'10" and as wide as I am tall, but hey, through Christ, I'm going to be a star athlete. That's not what he's talking about. The folks that say, I can do all things through Christ, I want a Ferrari. You know, I don't make nothing. My credit rating's kind of in the negative, but hey, I can do all things through Christ. That's not what that verse is about. It's quoted out of context and it's abused. What Paul was saying was, hey, through Christ, I can face any situation that I come across. Anything that happens, not in my own strength, I'm not bragging on myself, Paul said, but because of Jesus Christ, and his grace and his glory, I'm able to handle whatever comes my way. So we want to enjoy the moments of life. We want to let others build us up rather than trying to do it ourselves. And Jesus had a lot to say about that too. In Luke chapter 14, he tells a parable about some folks at a wedding, how they were all trying to get in the places of honor. You know, they all kind of thought it's this big wedding feast. I mean, we think we do weddings big in our society. In Jesus' day, weddings were a huge thing, could last for days, okay? And so he tells a story about these folks who think, oh, well, yeah, we're like family to them. We're going to go and sit at the best seats. We're going to sit at the head tables and be close to them. And Jesus talks about how humiliating that would be if the bride and the groom have to come over and say, hey, bud, man, I'm sorry to say this, but you know, these seats are for some other people. Could you go sit back there in the back? Mortifying, right? How humiliating that would be. And Jesus said, but imagine the alternate scenario. You go and you kind of just take a chair wherever. You say, I'm not fighting all those people for whatever the good chairs are. I'm just going to take a seat here in the back. And the bride and groom happen to walk through and they say, man, hey, great to see you. What are you doing sitting back here? Come on up. We got some better spots for you. And Jesus said, you know, it's better to be humble and allow others to lift you up rather than constantly posturing and positioning and trying to build yourself up. So enjoy the moment that you're in. Let others build you up. And finally, remember your audience. Remember your audience. Now, if you have ever taken a speech class, they've taught you about that, right? That you got to speak to the audience you have. And so you got to think about what their age is, maybe what their social experiences are. You might take into consideration their financials. I mean, there's all sorts of things, race and culture and gender and everything about people's lives. Speakers are supposed to try to take those things into consideration. If you have a audience, and you're not just speaking to whoever in the world is listening, but if you have a set audience, then you got to keep that in mind. Well, we have an audience, okay? We have an audience. For everything that we do, the Bible tells us that we do it not for man, but for God. And that is so important, because when we forget that, we mess up and we do some really silly things. Listen, Jerry Krause was not an evil guy for wanting some recognition. We all want recognition. We all want to feel loved and valued and respected. That's a universal thing. And if anyone is all hard and big and bad and says, no, I don't need those things, it's probably because they've gotten hurt and they haven't received those things. And so now they have to kind of, wall themselves off and pretend like they don't need those things. But we all like to be valued, respected, and loved. There's nothing wrong with that, okay? That's natural human reaction. But we have to understand who it's really important to hear that from. Who really matters. And that's from the Lord. And so the Bible tells us that we do all things to the glory of God. That everything we do, we don't do to be man pleasers. That is, we don't do this to be suck ups, to impress other people. But really, everything we do on this stage called Earth, we do for the one audience member that counts, and that's God, because He's watching. And Jesus warns about the futility of trying to be this self-promoting person. In Matthew chapter 6, He talks about some folks who go around tooting their own horn. Literally. Okay, literally toot their own horn. He tells a story of some folks that when they go by and make donations to charity to give to the poor, they literally blow a trumpet to get everybody's attention and announce it to the world what they're doing. I mean, can you imagine? Let's just say you're in church and the plate is going by being passed, and all of a sudden you stop everything, you give the organist or the pianist the cymbal and say, hey, hold up here. Let me play my own music. Let everybody look at me, Okay. You literally toot your own horn about how much you're giving to the church or to the poor or to whatever good cause. He said, don't be like that. He said, when you show off, when you tell everybody and make a big deal about what you've done, guess what? That's your full reward. Hope you enjoy the recognition you got, because that's all you're going to get. That's what Jesus said. Look it up yourself in Matthew chapter 6. He said, but when you do it in an unassuming way, not making a big deal about it, your Father who is in heaven, He sees, and then He rewards. What would you rather have? Whatever momentary recognition you get by tooting your own horn, which comes off as arrogant and conceited anyway? Or would you rather just do your thing like you know you're supposed to do, realizing that God is watching and that He is the one that really matters, and that He will not fail to reward the good work that you have done? So, just like we all heard back in the day, be like Mike, today's lesson is don't be like Jerry Krause. Don't be that man or that woman who has such potential and such accomplishments, but you're your own worst enemy, and you sabotage your success. Don't be that person. Learn to live in the moment. Learn to value people, to build others up instead of constantly trying to build yourself up. And really remember that your audience is not everybody else around you in this world. Ultimately,